our song back. All right, so if this is your first episode checking this out, Will has changed up the songs on me a few times. But anyway, welcome to the Musician's Personal Development Podcast. I am CC Bass.
And I am Wil Cameron.
And we are two seasoned musicians that are here to bring you the best tips to help you to become your best musician self. Right. And today we are going to talk about, what are we talking about? How to deal with burnout.
Burnout.
Yeah. But before we get into it, as always, make sure you subscribe to this podcast because, we are talking about kind of these taboo topics that musicians don't really talk about so much.
Yeah,
like anxiety. Yeah, I know. Anxiety around performance. A lot of people have it. How to better connect with the audience. But a plethora of them. So be sure you check out previous episodes. You can also find us on Facebook at MPD Podcast. So how to deal with burnout. Wanted to talk about this because actually I think somebody suggested it. And I think it's good because, we all kind of hit the wall at some point, whether it's through music or some other area in life. And, in the music world, I hear about this a lot. And, here's what's funny, Will. When I was a young person, getting started out in my career as a musician, I had this attitude, me and my friends, my fellow musicians, we had this attitude like it was the musicians against the world, and nothing could stop us. And I would hear about people that would say, I used to play, I don't play anymore. It's just kind of not my thing, or I got burned out. And I used to say to my friends, I'd be like, that means he just sucks and he can't hang.
I'm never going to do that.
Right.
Man, if I had a break like that, I would never stop. Right.
Yeah. So, but until it happened to me, I had no idea that burnout would actually happen to me. And so, hence I took a long hiatus and then, eventually came back. But, I just noticed like along the way, there was this buildup of things of where I just kind of questioned why I was in the music. And, I think I was really doing it for the money. And, you really can't be in the music for the money because, being a musician doesn't necessarily pay that well, So, but, I was looking around me and I was looking at people that were playing, that were so much better, really advanced players, but they were still like doing these like $50 gigs.
Struggling.
And so I'm just looking at my, is this my life? Because at the time I was just trying to make things come together, and just kind of doing anything. And it just kind of became something that I lost my why, and I knew I really kind of had to walk away from music. Mm-hmm. So anyway, whatever the story is, getting burned out, it usually stems from a couple of different things. And I know, Will, you have your take on it, but oftentimes it's because, maybe we've hit a plateau, we're plateauing and we're not growing. So it's usually because we're not challenging ourselves enough. Or it could be because getting burned out because we're overwhelmed. So there's ways to deal with that too. So Will, what is your take on it?
Yeah, that complacency thing, that's real too. And that's something we don't really talk about that, it is, well, first of all, it is real. It is real. I mean, we're talking about some of the topics we talk about. We're not psychologists or psychiatrists, but they are emotional wellness types of topics, and we're not giving professional advice. We're sharing our experiences, so we want to make that clear. Yep. But this is real. You can't see it, but it is real, and there is a physical and an emotional component to this, and so you should be aware that if you find yourself, or maybe you have a bandmate that doesn't act the same, or maybe she doesn't react the same, or maybe she's late for rehearsals all the time. That complacency that Cece talked about, just the drudgery of going on and on and on. Just be aware of that. If you see somebody that's physically doing something that's different, that's in your band and they've been around, then maybe there's a reason for that. There are other things that happen in their lives. And there actually have been formal studies that talk about this, but we don't need to go into all of that because that's like kind of beyond the scope of what we're talking about. But you can, there are certain causes that you can also look out for. Like those people who sometimes they want to be helpful and they tend to take on a little bit more than what they should, or maybe you know an individual that is just there for everybody all the time. They seem to always be putting themselves last, and they're always doing things to help other people. You see people who just are, it's like, it's not there's not equity in the relationship. So they just continue to do the same things over and over again. And like Cece mentioned, if there are no challenges, if there are no differences in what they do, it's just the same thing over and over again, then that complacency can lead to burnout. If you find people who maybe their life and their time circumstances have changed, those are also things to take note of, because like I said, it's real. And there's a condition, I don't want to get too nerdy, but like in my former life, I had to know a little bit more about stuff like this. And there's actually, I don't want to mess it up, I'm going to read that the condition is called anhedonia. And it's a word that describes how a person will have a reduced interest in something that they used to be interested in. Or short answer is like somebody who's just not normally happy about stuff that they should be happy about, or their inability to feel pleasure about things that would make normal people happy. So there are all of these different triggers to watch out for. And, as far as me personally, Cece and I were talking, and I can't say that I'm burnout proof, but I do a couple of things that I just routinely do where it has never hit me. And Cece, how long was your hiatus when you kind of stepped away?
8 years.
And that
I had no idea that would happen.
And that's real, right? That is real. That's not just being tired or run down. That's something that was real, that you had to physically deal with. You had to actually emotionally or physically or whatever way deal with it, right?
Yeah. And what the funny thing is that when I left music, I said there is no way I'm coming back to this. And even if I did come back to music, it certainly wasn't going to be performing. But I tried not to close the door on that. People said just stay open, and I'm glad I did, because now I'm back to performing. I'm loving it more than ever, and I don't not just doing it for the money all the time. So, all right.
Yeah. Well, so that's a really good example. That's a story, and like I said, I'm not burnout proof, but it hasn't happened to me. And there's this thing that what does happen to me is I start to become less patient with people and less patient with circumstances. Let me give you an example. So if I know that I have regular band rehearsal and I play with a couple of bands in the area here, I'm happy to play with them. And, it gives me joy. I feel like I contribute. I derive pleasure from playing. And it's a great thing. And they pay a little bit too. So it's it's a great thing. It's a great partnership with these bands. I love these bands. But even though I feel that way, if I start to begin to feel less tolerant of maybe the band or a song or something like that, or if I know that, man, I got to go to rehearsal, good grief, and it's like I just kind of get tired of that. When I start to feel like I'm just growing more irritated or quickly irritated about a situation or a person, then as crazy as it sounds, I tell them, it's like, dudes, I'm having a moment here. If I'm quiet, you just got to understand, I just need some space. And they just, okay, we'll stay out of your way. And they understand, they back up a little bit. So I'm managing their expectations of me. I'm going to perform professionally, because that's what our podcast is about, being a better musician and being professional. So I'm going to be professional, but just articulating that, emotionally I'm not there. Physically I'm there. I'm playing the same way I normally play, but I just want to play and get done and get out. So it just doesn't happen to me because I'm able to do that. And then unfortunately, sometimes if it doesn't go away, or if those feelings don't go away, sometimes my form of, like when you said, finding different goals, Sometimes that's just the end of that band. It's like I've gone as far as I can with that band, and our friendship has just, it's bloomed into whatever it's going to bloom into, and it's time for that band and me to go our separate ways. So I just don't experience that burnout for that reason. So, but
very good.
Let's share the tips. I want to show you. So here's some things that are like that between the two of us we've come up with, and some of them line up and some of them don't. But if you all don't mind, we can share them with you really quick, and hopefully you'll be able to apply some of these, or have your eyes open, and maybe even help some others with this podcast. So I'll start them out. Let me read my note here. Okay, here's the simplest way is think about hitting the reset button. So if you're a computer person, nerd like me, you reboot. Everything in life reboots. Flowers do, trees, nature, everything reboots. So reboot. And the best way that I reboot is to assess what the heck I'm doing, what I'm playing, has my situation changed or whatever. So my first way of doing that is to assess. What is yours, CC?
Mine is, basically the same thing, is take a step back. I talked about when I was a younger musician, younger adult, previous life when I was playing, that I think I was leading up to burnout and didn't realize that. And that's, I think you first have to be aware. And so, and that's very important because I tell you, I have burned some bridges. Being burned out, I burn bridges. And, I guess I give an example that I've always been kind of felt bad about is that, I used to live in Los Angeles, and I was working there, playing music out there. And I used to be the house bass player for a jazz jam down in Crenshaw District. I don't remember the name of the club place, but if you live in Los Angeles and you know what I'm talking about. So actually, it was Billy Higgins, the famous drummer. It was actually his place, and they played jazz there all the time.
Wow.
And
I know you did that, dude. I need your autograph.
I'm famous by default, right? By association. So anyway, I said earlier that I was playing music for the money, and so the fact that I struggled with the anxiety part, so I didn't really want to go out there and play, but yet I needed to go out there and play because I needed the money. It was just this thing, and what came out was me with an attitude, and that people felt that. And so I remember being on the gig this one time, and I was only going to make about $25 at night. And I rose a stink to the lady that hired me to do it. And you know what she did? She reached down in her purse and gave me an extra $10 out of her purse. Wow. I felt like a real low at that point that, I made a big stink. For me, it was all about the few extra bucks versus the music. And so here's what happened. As the night went on, we were playing and everything, and the audience was loving it. And it was time for the event to end. On paper that it's supposed to end at a certain time, but everybody was loving it. The vibe was going, so we kept playing. And as the time was going over, I was getting more frustrated because look, time is up. I'm ready to go. And so what I did a jerk of a move. I stopped playing and I walked off stage. I took my equipment and walked off stage in front of everybody. So the point is that I'm getting back to is really, when you start to feel that burnout piece, who are you laughing at?
No.
I feel very terrible about that. Whoever might be out there that remembers me from back then and was there that night, I sincerely apologize because I certainly don't advocate for that now. But the point is to be aware of it and to really take a step back because you never know how that affects other people. To your point, Will.
That is. Thank you for sharing that. But I mentioned that at the beginning, how there is a physical and a mental health component to this, and it is real. And if you don't deal with if you don't deal with both of them, then something's not going to work out well. I'm not saying that it's always both, but if you've got if you don't deal with the physical aspects of it, then the mental health part is not going to come as easy. So you're the same person, physically and mental, right?
Yeah.
You can't address one thing and not address the other. So thank you for sharing that. What you had another one about the why or how or whatever. What was, you had something about that too, right?
Yeah, basically, check your why. Why you're doing this. I said I was playing music for the money, and you see how that's not a reason to, or a reason alone to just play music. I mean, we all know that performing doesn't pay all that much, or you certainly don't get rich over it. But I had to check that, and because I was doing it for the money. I can go make money elsewhere. I can make a lot more money elsewhere. So that's part of the reason why I walked away. I ended up, here's the funny thing. I ended up, during that hiatus, I went to school, and I was in school for almost like 13 years straight. But I went until I got tired of it and I got burned out. Then I came back to music. But yeah, so make sure you check your why.
Yes.
Why you're doing it. It's got. Some people say your why's got to make you cry.
Yeah, that's good. And it's funny that cyclical. It kind of loops back to my assess what you're doing and your playing situation. So yeah, so it is. Again, we've kind of accidentally merged our steps there. My next one is communication. I kind of alluded to it now. If you are a solo artist or hired gun or whatever, it's slightly different for you if you get burned out. And like you said, it may be your only source of income. So I would acknowledge that, hey, maybe we've got a problem here, and then seek professional help if that's what you need. But if you're like me and this is not, it's not your only source of income, and I play with other bands. If you're like me and you play with other bands and you have bandmates or friends or family members, my next step is to communicate, tell people. So you're managing expectations. So you're not that person that is unpredictable to your bandmates. So it's like, well, gosh, the last gig we had with Wil, he was great. Now, he's acting like he doesn't know us. So you communicate that not just to your bandmates, but to your family. If your family starts to ask, well, hey, how come you never go out and play anymore? You let them know, because, they love you. They can kind of pull you back and maybe help you to work your way through this. So communication is very important to me. And I've been successful in avoiding some of what Cece has been going through by just talking to people and having that support system, and then managing the expectations of other people instead of them thinking that I'm flaky or just weird and just kind of light switchy where I'm on one day and off the next. So,
yeah, that's important. I'm glad you brought that up. That's definitely, if you understand, that you need to communicate it, because that's a good one. I love that.
Yeah. What else do you have?
So what I was saying before about, oftentimes the reason people get burned out is because they're plateauing. They don't challenge themselves enough. So the action here is to challenge yourself more. And I'm always doing that in some form or fashion. Even on my way to a gig, I'm thinking about ways I can kind of mix it up.
You told me that. You told me that a long time ago, before we even dreamed we were doing this. You told me that. And I think I may have mentioned it before. You told me one day, you said, you know what, I think of something I'm going to do different. I thought it was something crazy. You said, I'm not going to use quarter notes like in any solos. It was something weird like that. And it's like, you would actually think of that. And you said, yeah, I try to come up with something that I'm going to do different, every single time. And I thought, well, that's different. And I remember that. You probably don't remember telling me that, though, do you?
Maybe. I kind of remember that. But something I've also kind of discovered through that journey too is that I always have to think about something I'm going to do different. I just really listen, and I get inspired by what people are doing, and it gives me ideas to do something different each time, and it just keeps going and going and going, so the gig becomes even more fun. But anyway, I digress. I'd be going off on a tangent here.
The point that I got out of that is that it tied to what you're talking about, the challenge. The point that I got out of that is that you actually have a thought about what you're going to do before you get there.
Yeah.
And it's like, so you were challenging yourself. Something was going to be different. You're not going to just show up and whatever happened.
Right.
So yeah, and that
Yeah.
actually, early on when I first met you, that touched me, and I thought, oh, you know what? And now I do it. It's not as extreme as yours. but I do
Excellent.
it.
Well,
So-
yeah, so I think it's really about being intentional. Why are you going to the gig? What do you want to get out of that? You know,
Right.
what do you want to get out of the rehearsal? You know, everything, every meeting, every photo take, every this and that and the other. You know, it's just having intention. And when you approach it that way, you know, it kind of helps you stay focused on where you're going, and it
Right.
makes it more
Right.
fun.
I got one last tip, and it's so remember I said there's an emotional and a physical component to this, and my last tip is to check your exercise routine. And this isn't picking on anybody, because I don't know what everybody's exercise routine is. And maybe you don't have an exercise routine. Maybe you thought about having one and you didn't. Or maybe you have such an extreme exercise routine, maybe you need to kind of look the other way and just switch it up or do something a little different. So whatever that physical component is that could help you to navigate your way through this, check it. That's all we're saying. Check your exercise routine. If you in the absence of one, maybe consider one if that's appropriate for you. So
I like that. You know,
so-
it's not enough on the physical wellness part of music. So, you know,
Yeah.
not many people talk about that.
and the convergence of it is like, it's how it happens. I mean, you're physically playing your instrument. So you're right. We could do a whole podcast on that. So
Yeah, because
Well, real
carrying that heavy bass back there, that can wear you out. Yeah,
Yeah,
or if you're blowing all night, you know, or if you're singing all night, you know, that stuff can wear you out.
Yeah, it is. And you're not the largest person in the world. So yeah, I know it's probably real to you. So, well, real quick, let's go through and hit these tips really quick. So in summary, the issue is that we're talking about today is about burnout. If you're experiencing burnout, it can be because of a physical and an emotional thing. It is real. You may not see it. Other people may see it in you. You may know it, and you may not say it, but it is real. The short answer, the short fix, the way that we've been successful is by hitting that reset button, or rebooting if you're a computer nerd like me. By that, we mean, one, taking a step back or assess whatever your situation is. Get a why, or know your why to whatever it is that you're doing. Communicating whatever that feeling is that you have, kind of like how I did to my bandmates. Hey, I'm not feeling it today. Another is challenging yourself. Don't just stumble into something. Be intentional about what you're doing. And finally, check your physical routines. Check your exercise routine. And those are our tips with regard to this today.
Yeah, and I will add too that, you know, if you're doing all of that and you're still burned out, it may just not be for you, or you may need to take a longer step away from that. And there's nothing wrong with that. You can't do everything, and everything's not for you. You know, you just find what works for you. There's some days I don't feel like picking up the bass, but there was about 8 years I didn't feel like picking up the bass, but
Can't imagine.
I'm here now. You know, it's just where you are in your journey. It's different for everybody.
Right.
It doesn't mean anything negative or about you. It just is.
Right. So that's great. Well, that's it for us today. So did you have any parting shots before we go? You want to tell them where to find our stuff?
Well, you could find it. So we're on MPD podcast. Wait, I'm. We're at MPD on Facebook and YouTube. Please subscribe to us below. You can also find us at MPD podcast at gmail.com. Sorry, if you want to send us a message. We'd love to hear ideas from you or share your story. So we appreciate all of that.
Right. Okay. So we got through that. We know who we are. You know how to find us. So thanks for watching us. Thanks for joining in. Thanks for the tips. Thanks for the support. Keep hitting the like and subscribe button, and we will catch up with you next time.
All right, hit the music.
Here comes the music.
Here we go. Here we go. Oh, there we go.